What's going on? It's the Rap Nerd, and with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning releasing over the weekend, I figured there's no better time than now than to rank the film franchise. And I'm also going to say that this is a list of what my favorites are. It's not technically by a quality standpoint, even though that does play a factor in it. But I feel like the franchise is so strong that there is no wrong answer here. All of the movies are pretty good, and I personally like or love all of them. So whatever number a movie is placed at, it has nothing to do with hate. Always gotta put that out there. You know, I don't want anybody feeling disrespected and going into the comments getting crazy because I ain't hating, you know what I'm saying? So without further ado, let's go ahead and start the list off. Now, to pop things off at number 8 is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. And this is the movie that I like the least for a number of reasons. And I just rewatched it recently, so it's fresh in my mind. But I still do like it, especially after getting Final Reckoning. It makes a lot of what was in that movie work for me more than it did when I initially watched it. So the biggest thing here for me is Gabriel. I don't like him as a character. I do not like when stories bring back a hidden character from the past to go after the protagonist. I don't know, I feel like that's kind of a scapegoat for writing, and I don't feel like he as a character is owed this amount of power and respect because we never saw him. You know, they make flashbacks in the movie that he dealt with Ethan in the past, but he wasn't in Mission Impossible 1 or any of the films. I don't even remember his name being mentioned. So having this concept of a dude just showing back up that we never saw just doesn't work for me. And his relationship with the entity still is a strange one. I feel like they could have gone the route of having the entity run things without him per se, or even bringing up a different character that may have been from the past, because these movies definitely have done it between Dead and Final. And it's just hard for me to get around him because he has so much screen time. And then there are some glaring VFX things that are going on, which really brings the movie down some too. I know all of these movies do use VFX, but they're able to camouflage it. But here, you can blatantly see the VFX in like the car chase, or most of all, the train hopping sequence when they jump train to train. Of course, you can't do that without VFX, but I just know that with it being so clearly visible, it threw me off quite a bit, especially with all of the modern ones being done so well. But it's not all bad, because I think that the action set pieces with, I believe her name is Palm, who played the French assassin, I thought all of her scenes were great. I even like some of the settings, especially in Venice, how they utilized the city. I love the cinematography of that scene. Oh yeah, one of the biggest crimes for me this movie commits is killing Elsa off the way they did. I do not stand by that at all. I just thought about that because I think that the opening sequence in the desert shootout, I think that scene is actually really great, and I love that. She has an eye patch and she has a sniping rifle. I think that whole sequence is dope, but I hate that they killed her off, man. I despise that actually. But still, it's watchable and I enjoy it. So at number 8 for me is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. So at the number 7 spot, this may be a little bit blasphemous for a lot of those out there who are fans of the franchise, but I got Mission Impossible 1. Now, before you carry your torch and pitchforks, just hear me out. So really the reason why this one is this low is just because I don't watch it nearly as much as the other films, and really that's because of the style of film. I feel like when this movie first broke onto the scene, it was America planting its flag like, yes, we have our version of 007, which it was because this movie operates more like those movies. It's an action thriller, you know, equally both parts in this film. It has action, but it doesn't go over the top like, you know, we see later on. And because these movies are what they are now, I just never really go back to this point, because this is the only movie that doesn't lean completely on the action like the others do. But still a game changer. The only reason we were able to escalate so high in the franchise now is because this movie was solid. It offered some very iconic sequences. I mean, everybody knows the bungee hang sequence of him having to get the information from the computer, you know, but the iconic face swaps and the explosive third act. So by no means is this a slump to the movie at all. It's just so old school for what this franchise has done that I just don't watch it as much. So at the number 7 spot for me is Mission Impossible 1. At the number 6 spot is Mission Impossible 2, and this is the one that seems to be disliked by a lot of fans of the franchise. Now, I totally get what you don't like about it, but what people don't like about it is kind of what I love about it. This movie is the face-off of Mission Impossible, and I say that for good reason. I think that the moments in here just stick with me more. When I first saw it, it really threw me for a loop. First of all, I believe his name is Ambrose, when he has that mask on as Ethan, and the MI girl is thinking that that's actually Ethan, and then when she leaves and he rips that mask off and you just see him so mad. I literally remember watching that on TV. My jaw dropped like, oh shit, this is when things are gonna go bad, because he didn't know and now he knows. So that was a big moment for me. And then they later on flipped that concept when Ethan does it to one of Ambrose's henchmen. I forgot what the character's name was, but that again was a shock because he had the Ethan mask on, and I'm thinking he shot and killed him, and I'm like, damn, he killed Ethan, only to find out that that was his man that he shot, and it was this big shock. I love both of those things. And of course you have all of the John Woo isms, the slow motion, the dubs flying as Ethan does a lunging roundhouse kick, and then when he leaves the underground base, you had that whole motorcycle chase where he somehow is able to shoot down a helicopter. Man, this shit is great. I love that movie and how far it takes things. And I feel like it was the movie that took the franchise in the direction of leaning all the way on the action side of things, because from this point on, these just turned into action movies. You know, granted, they are classified as action thrillers, but they lean heavily on the action from 2 to Final Reckoning. And that's what we have known the franchise for, and I feel like it's because of what Mission Impossible 2 did. So at the number 6 spot for me is Mission Impossible 2. So at the number 5 spot for me is Mission Impossible 3, and this is the first MI movie that I saw in theaters, and this is the movie that clicked. You know, I liked the first 2 when I saw them because I caught them on TV, but seeing them on the big screen was like, these are these epic scale espionage action movies. Just the way the film opens let me know that we are totally in for some shit. And a lot of things I love about this movie, it's a look at Ethan outside of the Mission Impossible shit. You know, he's what seems like has now called it quits and he wants to live a life with his wife. But as we all know, the life calls back to him because he wanted to save a friend of his only to fail miserably. And then that caused the domino block of him jumping back into the field. But I think this is the lesson that he learned, that he can't lead with emotions, because it almost got him caught up in a very bad way. And I think that this is such a great step after the first 2 movies to go that route. And it offers one of the best villains with Owen and how to even go about his character, because they use everything from the first 2 to their advantage, like using a face mask to capture him. And you think it's this moment of like, oh, the good guys won, they're taking him in. The first thing that comes out of Owen's mouth is like, I'm gonna hurt you so bad. I'm gonna hurt all of y'all so bad. And then the whole dynamic of the scene switches to where it's like, oh shit, they might have really fucked up getting this guy. You can see how it gets to Ethan, and ultimately what he says comes true. So the story of this film really wrapped me up. And it has all of the J. Abrams cliches that you could want. This is undoubtedly so much of his style. I know there are a lot of people who are like this with JJ, but I appreciate his work, and I feel like though he is going after what Steven Spielberg does, I think that he does it good. So at the 5 spot for me is Mission Impossible 3. At the number 4 spot is Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I just did a review for that, so if you really want to know what my thoughts are in depth, please check that review out. But all in all, I think that it's a great conclusion to the series, if this in fact is the end. I like them taking what Dead Reckoning gave us and not only making sense of it, but completing that story and using the entity as a tool of straight horror, because this movie feels like a horror movie. It is very bleak, it is very dangerous, it is serious, and actually feels like the end of the world more than any of these movies had. I love the new team and how they work together, and could see them making more with this new team, as well as giving us the moments that we love in the franchise that we can always remember, with the submarine and the plane fight. Just a very incredible film and way to close the series. But again, 4 thoughts on the review that I got. Final Reckoning at the number 4 spot. At the number 3 spot for me is Ghost Protocol, and this is when Macquarie really came into the picture. He did not direct it, but he definitely helped out, thanks to my dude Film Fiends, who gave me that tip, because I was like, this movie feels like the changing happen again with Mission Impossible in the way it has its action, because of course you have the first one, which is an action thriller that leans more towards the espionage parts, and then you have 2 and 3 that really embrace the heart-pumping action of the series. And then when you get to Ghost Protocol, it just takes everything up a whole bunch of notches. And again, it's because Aquario stepped in here and shot for the park and hit every single time. I mean, the Burj Khalifa scene is something that you had to be in the theaters to understand the amount of tension and pressure that scene has. I still clench up when I watch that scene to this day in my house because of how it was in theaters. I mean, him just boom. And they use the sound design every time his hand hits the window. You can hear the wind and the cupping of his gloves to the glass. It just is such a great moment. And to have no music while this is going on, for this scene alone, this movie is up there in regards to the franchise. And it adds a few new characters with Paula Patton and Jeremy Renner, who for some reason I just like Jeremy Renner in these kind of action roles. You know, I loved him in the Bourne Legacy movie and as Hawkeye. He plays this low scale type of soldier role pretty well, and he's a likable dude. And Paula Patton kind of playing a muscle and her having her motives with her husband, I believe, getting killed in Line of Duty, so she has this chip on her shoulder. And I also love that scene in the sandstorm when Ethan chases down the main antagonist. I thought that sequence was done really well. So overall, this is one that sticks out to me because of the theatrical experience, and the Burj Khalifa is just such an incredible sequence. So at the number 3 spot is Ghost Protocol. At number 2 is Rogue Nation, and this is the introduction of Elsa, who I think is easily one of the best characters in the franchise. I would even put her at number 2. And that's why I was so pissed when they killed her off of Dead Reckoning. I loved her in this franchise because she was definitely Ethan's equal on all fronts. She was just as smart, just as witty. She could do the good cop, bad cop, camouflaging herself, handling herself with action. In any regard, whether it be hand-to-hand combat or pulling out a rifle and shooting. And it would make sense that she became the love interest of him, because I feel like she understands him eye to eye with everything that he has to go to, and that's where their bond began and it ended, unfortunately. This movie gave me one of my favorite villains in Lane, who was probably the most James Bond-esque villain of the franchise to me. He was the mustache twirling like, you do what I say or you will suffer the consequences. He ain't talk like that, but just the way that he was made me feel that way, especially with the movie opening and already putting Ethan in the trap. I thought that was really dope. And it gives us these 2 great moments. The opera shootout, which I thought was super fire, having the band play as the fight is going on in the rafters. And the water vault, I am deathly scared of water, so this scene was very, very, very effective. And being in theaters watching this one, whew, such a spectacular movie. Introducing my second favorite character in the franchise with Elsa. At the number 2 spot is Rogue Nation. So easily at the number 1 is Fallout. One of the best action movies ever made, period. The bathroom fight sequence, legendary. The base jumping, legendary. Just Henry Cavill in this movie is the best villain for me personally, because he's the only dude, I think, that was able to really test Ethan from a physical standpoint, but was also still witty as well. He may not have been setting everything up on his own, because at the end of the day, Lane was still the big villain here. But you want to talk about a hammer of right-hand man, August Walker is definitely that. Just a bulldozer this entire movie. And there could be a little bit of Henry Cavill bias because I love him as an actor. He's my favorite Superman, so to see him in his role as a villain was extremely different, but I'm like, he should do more of this because he was great. You know, you got Elsa Faust here again to support the team, and then you introduce to Vanessa Kirby's the White Widow, who plays this kind of Kingpin-esque role where everybody around her is under her command, and she does it so eloquently. Then you throw in Angela Bassett, who's only in the movie for a short amount of time, but still has her presence felt completely. And the icing on the cake is just the 3rd act. For Lane to lead them back to a position where Ethan's now ex-wife is, to ensue battle, to up the stakes even more. What a movie this is, man. And I don't think anyone's going to be surprised at that. I think a lot of people have Fallout as their number 1 from what I have seen. So at number 1 again, Fallout. So that's my ranking of the Mission Impossible franchise. Let me know in the comments what yours is like. And again, if this list is different than yours, no disrespect at all, family. I love having these discussions. And if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace. RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy. Instead of banking on it, now rapping is just a hobby.